I'm a product owner at L2Beat, and if you haven't heard about L2Beat, it's a research and analytics company focused on Ethereum scaling solutions, or the so-called L2s. We are a public goods company. We provide all the research and metrics that we have for free, and we mainly focus on the security of those solutions and the risks that come with using them. So I'll start with some context. So why do we need L2s? Some of you have probably heard about the so-called scalability trilemma. The thing is that there are three properties that are desirable for a blockchain. This is scalability, decentralization, and security. The trilemma states that a blockchain cannot have all three at the same time. And to give some examples, Solana, for example, has a high throughput, low cost, but it sacrifices the decentralization because of the high requirements for the nodes. Bitcoin is another example where it has high security and decentralization, but at the cost of low number of transactions that can be included in one block. And then Ethereum. Ethereum at first prioritized the security and decentralization, but then started facing scalability issues. And to solve this, Ethereum decided to come up with a way to push all three buttons and released their rollup-centric roadmap that includes those L2s as a main focus. So what L2s are? L2s inherit the data availability, the consensus, and the settlement from Ethereum, but they do the transaction execution off-chain. Here in this example, those are the solutions on the left. So those can be either rollups that use Ethereum for data availability, or Validiums and Optimiums that have an external solution for data availability. Validiums are the ones that use ZK proof systems, and Optimiums use optimistic or fraud proofs. So I'll start with some ecosystem metrics to see where we are when it comes to L2s. First of all, on the left, you can see the current value locked in all L2 solutions. It stands at around $36 billion. And then when it comes to activity, right now there are around, let's say, 300 transactions per second settled on layer 2s. Compared to 14 on Ethereum. So the scaling factor, it basically shows how many more transactions can be executed on L2s, is 22. In the table below, you can see the top solutions based on the total value locked. Right now, Arbitrum is on the top. And so if we're looking at those charts, things are looking okay. I mean, activity is moving to L2s, value is moving to L2s, so all seems good. There are over 100 scaling solutions right now. Most of those are Optimiums, which is not great, and I'll explain why in a bit. But the good thing is that they make up for really small percentage of the total value locked. So let's say that most of the funds are still on rollups, so it's not that big of an issue. And then if we look at the technology stacks, most of the scaling solutions right now are based either on the Optimism technology stack or the Arbitrum Orbit one. But overall, all projects that are building some kind of unique technology are aiming to build ecosystems around their own stack. So more stacks are expected to be created. Right now, as an example, we have the Polygon CDK stack. StarkX. We also have the ZK Sync stack and some other smaller ones. And final set of charts. Here I just wanted to say that the majority of the TVL comes from solutions that are either launched through the OP stack or the Orbit stack. And same for the activity. It's close to 90%. So far, things seem okay. But let's see where we are actually with the scaling roadmap. This is the roadmap that Ethereum Foundation released couple years ago. And the part that is interesting to us is the second one, the search. It deals with scaling and outlines some milestones for the layer 2 solutions. So here you can see that the first one was already completed. So this year in March, EIP 4844 was released with the Dencon upgrade. It allowed for blobs to be submitted for Ethereum, and it is something that's important for data availability because previously submitting all the transaction data as a layer 2 to Ethereum was super expensive. Right now, the costs are I would say around cent per transaction or something like this. So it's very cheap. But it's not over. I'll mention why in a bit. Once this got released, around 30% of the solution started using blobs. And that's 70% of the rollups. And you might be wondering why, if it is so cheap, more solutions have not started doing this yet. And the reason is that right now, only 6 blobs can be submitted per block. And you can submit a limited amount of data in each blob. And there is a target that's currently set to 3 blobs. So whenever the amount of blobs goes above this target, the costs for publishing the data to blobs increases significantly. And we can see this in this example. I think at this point in time, Layer 0 launched their airdrop, so there was increased activity on Arbitrum. And the costs here for all solutions combined for a day jumped from around 20K to $1 million. And that's a pretty significant increase, and that's why some solutions might be hesitant to using Ethereum as a DA layer, because if more solutions start doing this, then we'll probably start reaching this target way more often, and there won't be a big difference between using cold data versus using blobs to post this data. So there are a couple of improvements that are planned here, and I'll mention those a bit later. But let's look at the second part of the scaling roadmap. The second part says that the first milestone is for L2s to have limited training wheels, and then to move to having no training wheels. And we at L2Beat came up with this framework that allows us to evaluate the L2s on a couple of risk properties in order to be able to track the progress towards better security and decentralization. So now I'm going to go through each of those properties and we'll see if any progress is being done there. So when it comes to state validation and why state validation important, every time there are some transactions, Ethereum has to be aware of the changes in the state of the rollup. In order for this to happen, there is an actor called the proposer that is submitting state routes to Ethereum. The thing is that someone has to guarantee that those state roots are valid and they do not represent an incorrect state, because if that's the case, then funds can be stolen. So that's why we have proof systems. And the thing is that right now, most of the ZK rollups have working proof systems. They're not perfect, but they're doing the job. However, we cannot say the same for optimistic rollups. When it comes to optimistic rollups, the only one that has a permissionless proof system is OP mainnet. You can see that Arbitrum has fraud proofs, but their proof system is permissioned. Usually, that's the case if there is some kind of uncertainty about the security of the system. And that's why only a permissioned set of actors can submit those state roots and can challenge them. OP Mainnet released their proof system recently, and the rest of the OP stack chains have not followed yet, but hopefully they'll do this soon. When it comes to the ZK rollups, as I mentioned, the systems are not perfect because this is an example with Linea. In their documentation, they say that the proofs do not prove 100% of the EVM opcodes. And that's why, again, there is a permissioned set of actors that can submit those. Otherwise, there is the risk of funds being stolen. This is an example with Arbitrum. They currently use the Arbitrum Classic protocol. So they have a whitelisted actors that can submit or challenge the state roots. And the project currently can be subject to delay attacks. This means that withdrawals might be delayed. However, Arbitrum is planning to make some significant upgrades with the launch of Boat. It's expected to come to mainnet, I believe, beginning of next year. And with Boat, they're supposed to remove this permission set of actors because they're going to introduce bonds. So all the actors that want to propose or challenge root, you have to stake a bond that has a very significant size. So this limits the number of actors that are willing to play those dispute games and willing to attack the system. Oops, wrong button. So over the past months, we at L2Beat spent a significant amount of time analyzing those proof systems with a focus on optimistic rollups. And we came up with another trilemma when it comes to developing a fraud-proof system. So projects basically have to choose between promptness, safety, and decentralization. Promptness deals with those delays. So if they decide to prioritize the ability to withdraw faster, even if there is some kind of dispute game, then they would prioritize promptness. Safety deals with basically how secure the system is and how likely it is that funds are stolen. And decentralization deals with the amount of actors that can participate in those dispute games. So if we are to rank those systems in this trilemma, okay, before that, I just want to mention that this introduced because there is this attack called resource exhaustion attack. And it allows a malicious actor to outlast the honest defenders if they have more funds than them, and if they can continue playing those dispute games longer. That's why this trilemma exists. And with Arbitrum Classic that is currently on mainnet, the things that are prioritized are safety and decentralization because they have low bond requirements, And they do not allow for parallel challenges to happen. But this might lead to some delays, so they're not prioritizing promptness. Same for Cartesi protocol. Then both, as I mentioned, will introduce larger bond size, which means that not everyone will be able to participate because not everyone will have this amount of funds. So they would prioritize safety and promptness. And OP mainnet, their proof system that is currently on mainnet, unfortunately, prioritizes promptness and decentralization, but it's not secure enough. And this is because right now, if a dispute game is ongoing, there's a slight advantage for the attacker. So at the end, if they have significant amount, they can outlast the honest actors. And you might be wondering then, is OP mainnet secure enough to use? It is because there are still those training wheels. So OP mainnet has a multisig that includes their security council and the optimism foundation that can upgrade the system at any time, override the proof system. So if something happens, then you can trust the entity to react quickly and do the upgrade. But at the same time, there is another risk here because imagine that the Security Council and the foundation are malicious, or somehow all those multisigs get compromised. Then they might do a malicious upgrade. And so what do you do then? That's why there is this exit window. Exit window is basically the time you have to exit in case there is an unwanted upgrade. So to bridge back to the A1. And you can see that OP mainnet doesn't have such an exit window right now, so not great. Arbitrum has one. And the way we calculate the exit window is that we take not only the delay on upgrades into account, but also the delays for you being able to become a proposer or you being able to become a sequencer, because it might be that there is a malicious upgrade, then the centralized sequencer or the proposers do not include your transactions on the A1. So you need to be able to do this by yourself somehow in the worst case scenario. So right now, Arbitrum 1 is the only system that you can exit in a completely permissionless and trustless way. This is a tweet from yesterday because Radiant Finance got exploited. And we just wanted to show how important it is to have larger thresholds for those multisigs that are used for the upgrades. And the situation now, you can see, is not perfect. Those are the thresholds with the value that they are securing. When it comes to the sequencer failure, right now most optimistic rollups have some kind of mechanism for you to sequence the transactions by yourself. So you kind of become a sequencer if the sequencer is censoring your transactions. ZK rollups do not have this option because there is a concern that some transactions, if they're too big, won't really work with the ZK proofs. So that's why this is not allowed for now. When it comes to the proposer failure, most of the optimistic rollups do not have this option because, again, they don't have a fraud-proof system. So if anyone can become a proposer, then they can propose an incorrect state root. And last part of the disk rosette is data availability. We have a dedicated page to this with all the details, but it is important because For optimistic rollups, if you want to prove that a state is incorrect, you need all the transaction data to be able to construct the correct state. For ZK rollups, this is not needed, but it is still needed if you have to exit the system in a trusted way. So if you have to become a sequencer or a proposer, you need to be able to reconstruct the state of the system from the data posted on the L1. And for this one, to be able to rate the solutions here, because over the past year, apart from Ethereum launching blobs, there was Celestia, EigenDA, and so on. We had to come up with another framework. It is right now in our forum, so if you want to check it out, you can do it and share your opinion before we publish it on the website with all the risk analysis for all DA solutions. And what about L3s? So this is a case that we had to handle this year because Arbitrum Orbit, their strategy right now is to attract more projects building L3s on top of Arbitrum 1. So for L3s, the risks basically stuck. And we assume the worst risk for all of the properties, because even if, for example, you have an exit window on Sanko or on Arbitrum 1, if the other chain doesn't have one and both projects decide to cooperate to steal your funds, then you won't be able to escape. So to be able to rank projects according to all those properties, we had to come up with a ranking system called stages. As you can see right now, there are only 2 projects that have reached stage 2, 4 projects have reached stage 1, and 34 projects are still at stage 0, and this is rollups only, so solutions that use Ethereum for DA. In the last year, it was only OP mainnet with the introduction of their for-proof system that was able to move up in stage. So going back to this roadmap, I want to briefly touch on the interoperability part. So here there's lots of research being done. Not many solutions are live on mainnet yet. Right now, it seems like all those ecosystems are aiming to allow for interoperability within their own ecosystem. For example, Optimism has their own superchain ERC20 standard, but then it doesn't yet have the messaging protocol, and the fraud-proof system doesn't work with it. zkSync and Polygon have shared escrows, so all the funds that are breached through the different rollups are put in one contract on mainnet. And then it is the single source of truth for the balances on all of the scaling solutions. At the same time, for optimistic rollups, it seems like it's a bit more difficult because they cannot benefit from some of the research that's done. So in their case, shared sequencing is being explored. So there can be sequencers that batch transactions from multiple rollups in one batch. But it seems like so far those sequencers would only work within the ecosystem because they need, the projects need to be using the same contract on mainnet. So it might be that in the short term, projects have to choose between building a ZK rollup that is interoperable with all other rollups, but not the ones that are using any of the OP stack or the Orbit stack, or building an optimistic rollup that's interoperable with other rollups within the same ecosystem, but not with rollups outside of it. So to conclude, it seems like ZK is the favored approach in the research community. However, if we look at the ecosystem metrics, ZK rollups have lower adoption rate. Interoperability is yet to be solved. The next major change when it comes to data availability and scaling is peer DAOs. So it will allow the blobs limit and the blob targets to increase. So hopefully more projects will start using Ethereum for DA. And there are still many training wheels that need to be removed. We as L2Beat are trying to push the projects to do this, and we'll probably become way stricter when it comes to evaluating them in the next year. So yeah, progress is being made, but there's still a long way to go. Thank you.